Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome to my channel. Today I am joined with Lilia, is it Tarawa?
Tarawa, kia ora.
Tarawa. And she is the author of a book called
Daughter of Gloriavale, My Life in a Religious Cult.
So you grew up which is a beautiful book, by the way, and it's actually available on Amazon. You can get it on your Kindle, which I got on my Kindle, I think for like $12.99.
Go.
It is your account of growing up and leaving a community, a relatively closed community in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And last week, I ended up doing a stream introducing my subscribers to Gloriavale, which is a community that was actually started by your grandfather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your book and you've done a TED Talk as well, is your experience being a part of this community and then leaving.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So one of the things that I found very interesting about your book is the fact that you, even despite all of the stuff with how terrible things can be there, you have fond memories of growing up in this place. So what was it like growing up in Gloriavale?
It was similar to just growing up in, like, I guess a massive big family. Yeah. So most of us would easily imagine what it's like to be able to, like, grow up in a household with, say, like one or two brothers or sisters and parents. So if you just take that one or two brothers and sisters and two parents or one parent and multiply it by and have like 500 people living in that house, and it's a really gigantic house.
So you grew up in Gloriavale, and you said your childhood was relatively like normal, big families. You guys have communal hostels that you lived in, right?
Yeah, communal hostels, 3 stories high. I think there was probably about 15, 20 families on one floor. Every family had a room of their own. Families could get up to as big as 13 people. So you could have like about 10 people living in a room at a time. As people got married, they would then get their own room where they would start their own family.
How large were these rooms?
Not very big at all. It's very, very cramped. The room, gosh, off the top of my head, 10 meters long. That might even be generous. 5 meters wide.
Okay, not big. And these are big families because the community, your grandfather was against contraception. And so it was basically as many, babies as God can provide.
Yeah, like if you think of a social structure where like childbirth and having children is like the ideal in your society. So to have as many children as you can gives you almost like a higher social standing. You have more power, you have a bigger family, you have more influence. They base those religious beliefs of like a scripture that says children are a heritage of the Lord and the fruit of the womb is his reward. And they also believe that to take a contraceptive pill is interfering with what God wants or like the natural way things should be.
Okay. That's not that abnormal. I mean, that's like similar to, I grew up Catholic. That's, kind of a similar belief system. Yeah. I didn't grow up with, you had how many siblings? 10?
9.
9. So it's a family of 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mum had 15 siblings.
And your mom is actually the daughter of Neville, who changed his name to Hopeful Christian.
Yeah. So my mum's the daughter of the church founder. So she's like what I guess you would call an original Gloriavale member.
So in your book, you talk a lot about how, or in the very beginning, you sort of highlight how it all started. Your grandfather was an evangelical Christian that was sort of trying to spread the word of God, but as he did this, his beliefs were out of sync or not compatible with other churches, and so he would often get like separate, and he sort of started developing more and more fundamentalist beliefs. And at some point, he decides, this is the part which I thought was crazy. He decides that the church people are all going to share everything. And they make it seem in the Gloriavale Amazon Prime docuseries that communal living is what everyone wants. But you made it seem like that people when he started this were not happy with this. Some people were not.
Yeah, well, some people were and some people weren't. Originally, like, so my grandfather was like a researcher, and he would like take a whole bunch of like different models of how church systems and belief systems were set up, and then he would go, well, if we want to build a model that works, what are the best traits that we can take from each different organization that we're studying? So for example, the clothing that people wear in Gloriavale, it's just one uniform for women and one for men. It was a replica, or it was inspired by Amish and Hutterite clothing. And so my grandfather was essentially Christian, so he was following New Testament beliefs out of the Bible, evangelical Christian. He started as an evangelist. He was traveling, flying into the Australian outback and preaching the gospel of Christ to remote communities. He gained, I guess people really enjoyed listening to him. He was an incredible speaker. He was a storyteller, and he was impassioned and inspiring. And so he was invited to New Zealand. He came to New Zealand, started a community here. And then it kind of got to this point where he was at church one day, and he saw a family coming to church, and the wife was pushing a child, and the husband was walking beside her, and they were walking in the rain.
They needed a car.
He saw another, they didn't have a car, they were poor. And so he saw another family coming to church, and they had more than one car. So the intention behind communal living was about this, removing this extreme sort of living in poverty and living in luxury, and bringing it into more of an equilibrium and balancing it out, which, if you think about it, is a really ideal scenario, even for like what we have in the world here with third world countries and then first world countries. There's this like extreme sense of like wealth here and poverty here. So what my grandfather was doing with the community in terms of putting all their assets into one, all their money into one, sharing everything and distributing it evenly, was to help balance out that extreme contrast.
So bringing it into like an equilibrium, like an idealist, like utopian socialist world of everything is shared. Which in theory sounds wonderful. But your grandfather fancied himself maybe slightly a narcissist.
My grandfather was like he was, gosh, a control freak. Like he was a powerful man that his word was law. And like he was the type of man, like you could just stand by him and you could feel like, in New Zealand and Māori we call it mana, which is like the energy and prestige that someone has. He very much embodied that. He was a leader, and that's why people followed him. And he definitely, like in any system, there are people in power and people with more power, people with less. So my grandfather was the power in this society that he created.
Mhm.
It was his creation.
I'm guessing it never intended to become what it was. And then with more power, with more followers, with more ego and control, it turns into and manifests into this place where there's no checks and balances because he's the top person. What he says is whatever. There's no one telling him he can't do or say what he does because he's the God. Because he's delivering messages and he's saying that God said this, right? Like,
I think you need to look at like the basic doctrine on which the society is structured. So let's just take Gloriavale completely out of the mix for a minute, and let's talk about like the Christian God. The Christian God is an all-powerful, single, dominant figure that is male, and he is a figure that will send you to eternal burning hell should you disobey him. So like extreme punishment. Or he will give you eternal bliss in heaven if you do everything that he asks of you.
right.
When you're going to build any society on a doctrine that where that story and that narrative is the founding principle, you're not going to be able to stop that society being a mirror for the doctrines that they believe in. So I would not just say like Gloriavale's the problem. Let's actually go to the root cause, which would be the founding doctrine that Gloriavale is built on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think there are definitely like, you see it repetitively that with this, I mean, it happens in almost every religion that once it becomes man-made and they're following the structure, there typically becomes a person that wants to be the prophet, the God person, and have that kind of power and control. Because let's be honest, it's intoxicating to have people follow you, listen to you, wait on your every word, want you to like look to you for everything. And if you are someone that craves that, you are going to want more of that. And it sounds like it never started out as this, like, we're going to be this extreme, but it developed over time. So you talk about your grandmother, Gloria, and she was extremely obedient and submissive and the perfect wife for your grandfather. And that he decided that women in this society were supposed to be like Gloria. So tell me, like, what was the women's role growing up in Gloriavale? What did that look like?
Like the women's role is a very archaic kind of old-fashioned role of women, to stay home, have babies, do the cooking, the cleaning, to look after their husbands, to serve the husband, to serve the home. Women weren't to have careers. So there were very distinct gender roles in terms of men are breadwinners, women are stay at home.
And yet it's weird because you guys were all working. Let's be honest, right? The women are working in the kitchen, running the kitchen. They're running the schools. You had some that were their midwives, or were the midwives external?
Internal and external midwives.
So
they probably have all internal midwives.
So you've got the midwives, you've got the teachers, they're doing laundry, they're making all the food, they're doing all the food planning, and your mother was in charge of the women. And your father was in charge of business. So your parents held very like high-ranking positions within this organization.
They really did. My mother was what we would say the highest ranking woman in Gloriavale. She was called house mother. She basically oversaw all of the budgeting, the organization of social events, and the rostering of women for their daily tasks. She was really, really respected in her role, and probably one of the only like women in the society that men often answered to, which was a little different for me growing up in a world where women were under men.
Yeah, I mean, because in your mom had power in a way, like, which is in contrast to what the system was setting up, which I would imagine is confusing for you because you have a mother who is theoretically powerful and has, it sounds like your mother is a very like loving, you describe your parents as very kind and loving and despite all of the stuff going around it, trying to keep you guys safe and as safe as possible. Which is nice to hear. But I would imagine the model of your mother being this person that has that power would be like, I want to be like mommy.
Yeah, 100%. Like, she was my idol. I remember, like, we did this, like, school, this exercise in school, and it was, like, talking about what we wanted to do when we grew up.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do in Gloriavale when we grew up.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember saying, I want to be like my mum. Like, she was the ultimate role model for a female in my world. She was the highest achieving woman in my world.
So you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I was always ambitious. Like, totally. Since I was little.
Yeah, and that's in contrast to what your grandfather wants for women.
Oh, 100%. Like, women are to be kept down. Like, women, like, they literally have rules in Gloriavale where a woman is not to speak against a man. So if a man said something that I disagreed with, I would not be allowed to disagree with him. Women aren't allowed to teach or preach in like areas or situations where there are men present. They're only allowed to when there's other women and children present.
And the man has the sole authority. So it's like your grandfather is here, and then there's the shepherds that are in his circle, the elders basically that make choices for the community, and then the women that take care of the women's side, but they don't have the say. The women aren't deciding like where they spend their money or what they're going to do economically or anything like that. They don't decide on who gets married and anything like that. I thought one of the most compelling stories in here and in your TED Talk was your first report card and how that must have, like, in one breath been so exciting because your teachers said that you were a wonderful pupil, that you listened, that you helped others, that you that you listened to your teachers, that you offered, like, you were engaged.
Yeah.
You helped your peers. And your grandpa.
I was the type of kid that like thrived on praise. Like, and everything I did was like in order to like earn the praise, but also like feel like I was good enough.
Sure.
Like feel like I was good enough as a girl, like I was doing well as a student. And for someone who's also ambitious, just naturally, you want to do the best you can do. Not because of pleasing anyone else, but simply so that you feel good because you know you've done what you can do.
It must feel so suffocating, if in a way, where you have your thoughts, your hopes, and your dreams, and it's not compatible with what the community says. Like, how did you, as a child, struggle, like, sort through that? Like, how do you want to be a leader? Your grandfather reads your report card and says, we do not want girls like this. And he scolds the teachers for praising a girl for being like this and reminds the people that they should have girls with their heads down, submissive, and not like this. That must have molded you in a way that like reverberated through your childhood.
I remember like immediately after that happened at the dinner table, and I got up, picked up the plates, took them to the kitchen because we were all clearing the tables. And I remember my auntie came and she checked to see if I was okay. Like, because she obviously knew that what had happened wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And I remember just like almost being a little bit like just kind of blank about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, obviously I just need to do better. Like, so my first instinct was to like self-assess and go, well, if I'm being told off or growled at, scolded,
Yeah.
I've obviously done something wrong,
Right.
which means that I should figure out what it is that I've done wrong and try to do better. And this is just like my problem solving mind as a child.
Like, how
So,
do I please grandpa? Like, how do I? Yeah.
Like, what have I done wrong? How can I change it to do better? And it's like interesting because then you've got someone assessing themselves and going, okay, so then these things that I'm naturally doing, like these emerging like leadership skills that I have, I'm constantly feeling like there's something wrong with me because I don't fit in. Like, I don't really,
You're not submissive.
they want me to be, it's not me.
You're not.
And that's really hard.
Yeah, you're not meek enough. You're not submissive enough. You're not quiet enough. You're not.
Yeah.
They
And
want. I mean, they want like a female punching bag of just, you do whatever I say.
Yeah, obedient, meek, submissive, subservient. Like that is the picture of an ideal woman that is painted for that the society I was raised in.
That has
and
to. It has to like kill your self-esteem.
It 100% does. Yeah. And my self-esteem, something that like post-cult, I've had to really work on, like, and do a lot of inner trauma work and like get back to a place where that little girl knows that she's loved and that she's okay and that she doesn't have to change to be anything for anyone else. And she's good enough, just good enough.
You were a baby girl. Like, I'm a mother and I have a 7-year-old, and like, I'm imagining my little boy hearing that. Like, I'm like, you are ruining this little girl. Like, you are taking her. And even, this is what gets me, is even in the real world, little girls that are strong like you, I was like that, you know, like, you're opinionated, you're a B, you're bossy, you're this, you're that. Like, no one's going to like you because you've got so many opinions and you're going to do that, you know? But then I wasn't fighting the patriarchy. I mean, you were up against the patriarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So throughout your childhood, you have to sort of fight against who you are naturally, which is crazy. And then things just keep getting bad, because on the surface, everything at Gloriavale seems perfect. Like, oh, we have communal living and nobody has to worry about money and nobody has money, except you know, when they're not paying people and they have control of the pockets, you know that there's going to be fraud, and you know, which was one of the things a report found, that they were opening bank accounts for people and controlling the money. Like, there's so many aspects here where it's so easy to see how the power got so out of control.
Totally. It's like, as if it's used as a case study, it would be similar to like so many historical case studies that we have of societies that had like a dystopian societies, pretty much.
Yeah.
And they never end well.
No.
Like, name one dystopian society in history or in fiction that ends well.
The one thing that what I found interesting was, I was reading stories about people that have left, and I was thinking about that your day-to-day was so controlled. Like, you didn't have to make decisions because all of your decisions were made for you.
100%. Yeah.
You had your food. You didn't decide what you wanted to wear because you wore the same thing. You didn't have to decide what you were going to eat because you went to the cafeteria and you ate. You didn't have to decide where you were going to go to bed. You had a hostel. You didn't have to decide about what you were going to save your money for. You didn't have any. And then you had this document that you sign when you become an adult that basically says you will believe whatever is told to you. I showed the document in my last stream, which is crazy, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Like, you will believe whatever I say. You will not if you believe anything differently, they're controlling your minds.
Yep.
So what happens in these societies or in this community when someone said, yeah, I don't believe that?
So, like, obviously in any society, you're going to get like people who just push against the authority.
Yeah.
And even more like, especially so in societies like this, because there's no freedom.
Yeah.
So like a couple of examples I can give you of how things were treated is, say for example, there was a boy and a girl, and they were found gallivanting around because they were really liked each other. Dating's not possible in our society. Like, you're not allowed to date. You don't touch anyone other than, say, like a hug for like a girlfriend or something. Marriages are arranged, just to give you an idea. So if a boy and a girl were found doing this, they would be taken to a meeting, which is basically like the elders and the shepherds all gathered together, and they would pretty much just be like stripped down of their self-worth, basically just barraged with like, you're going to hell, you're evil, you're a sinner, like your family will disown you, like you're not one of us, you don't belong here. Like everything that's important to this person is pretty much just taken away from them. They're put in isolation, so they're not allowed to eat or socialize with anyone in their community.
These are like huts where they have to go stay when they disobey.
And the huts weren't built for that purpose. There is a couple of homesteads or houses away from the main community.
Yeah.
And they're often used for situations like this, where people are to be isolated and kept away from the community. So it's basically just like constant like stress and deprivation until you break.
They're going to stick you there to break your will, to reobey, to reprogram.
Yeah, to break your will. Like, that's what this is for. And then you have to repent, and publicly repent in front of the whole community. So this is your friends, your family, the people you were raised with, the people you love most in the world. If they're the most important thing in the world to you, hell yeah, you're going to stand up and be like, sorry, I messed up. Especially after you've gone through all of that.
Shows people like, hey, if you're like this person, this is what's going to happen to you.
100%. So why would you disobey or rebel if you know that like the punishments, like the risk is just too high?
Right.
It's too high. Like, so people don't because they're scared.
And they think that they're doing all of these things for the love of God. And you're taught all of these things. And so I was amazed at how much you guys are worked. I mean, it's forced labor.
Yeah. If you think the people are like a very, very hard working person, because like people, sorry, it's like work is equals self-worth in their world.
Yeah.
You don't work for money, so money can't equal self-worth. But the amount that you give to the community is like how you earn social standing or how you get a good reputation. Yeah.
And it's like, you guys, children going to school, and then immediately the young girls going to the kitchen to cook.
And the hours are crazy. Like, I mean, I hated, just me, like I hated getting up as early as we had to get up. Like, I think like kitchen duties like 6 a.m, sometimes 5:30. If you're on the bread, like creating the bread, making bread, you'd be up at like 3:33. Same for like washing and laundry. Like, so the rosters rotated in a cycle where like you would sort of do a really early shift, like maybe once a month, and then a couple of less early shifts like a 5:30 a.m. maybe every 2 weeks, and then this typical one would be like 6 o'clock. But I just remember like I was always having to get out of bed to work. Like I had to get out of bed to clean a toilet, or I had to get out of bed to knead bread, or I had to get out of bed to like do laundry, hang washing on the line. Like I didn't want to get out of bed after this. Like I hated getting up in the morning because all I got up to do was work.
Right. And then you go to school all day and then you go to work. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then how much sleep did what kind of sleep are people getting?
Well, I'd say they get a normal amount of sleep because there's like a curfew. So
Oh,
you have to be in your room by a certain time. I remember when we were young, maybe like 15, 14, we'd like hang out with our friends and sort of in like dark corners, just being kids. And the principal would come around and like tell us off, and we'd have to go to bed. So I would say like, I don't know. I don't feel like this is my personal opinion. I don't feel like I got enough sleep when I was younger.
no.
And I think everyone's different. Every person is different. Like some people can cope with not much sleep, but others can't. Whereas in Gloriavale, there's no like you just have to do your duty. There's no, oh, we'll make an exception for you because
I'm guessing there's
maybe you're sick.
I'm guessing
maybe you're sick.
Maybe. So do you get days off for being ill or for doing things that are fun?
You can tell you're like, call in and say like, I'm ill, I can't come to work. But it's also quite shameful, like, because being sick is weakness. Like there's the whole like, if you like, mental illness is just lack of faith.
The demons have possessed you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need medication or Panadol or painkillers. Like you just need to put up with it. Back in my day, that kind of attitude surrounding the whole medical.
I was reading a lot of it's like prayer, faith healing, like you're anti-vaccination, anti-medicine. I'm guessing health insurance wasn't common. Or did it need
Sorry?
Health? You probably don't need health insurance in New Zealand. It's probably
you wouldn't need health insurance. Like their insurance policy is a community. Your retirement plan is the community. Like one thing that is pretty amazing about this society is they look after their own. Like if someone's old, most of them will work themselves to the grave, but like once they're old and they can't work or they're sick, like they stop working and they're just looked after. So yeah, in many ways, like there's a part of me that's like, God, I'd love that life. Like I'd love to not have to be responsible for my bills. Like how great would that be? But then there's the other part of me that's like, nah, fuck that.
Well, because that's like, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's held over your head. I mean, like you don't have to worry about your living situation. We pay for you. We feed you. We do all of these things. And if you go out into the wicked world, those people are going to put you into hell because they're terrible. They're going to defile you and defraud you. And
well, it's basically just painting a picture of heaven and hell, but on earth. Gloriavale is heaven, the world is hell. Which one are you going to choose? Gloriavale's, your finances are provided for, your schooling's free, you have a community that loves you, you have a mission in life. You don't ever have to worry for a lot of things that a lot of people who have to self-support out here in the real world have to worry about. Out in the world, there's like women dressed like men and they're hard and they're ugly. And there's sinners, idolaters and adulterers and liars and just all these like wicked things that have been taught to you to be wicked from when you were a child. So you're indoctrinated out into a world like that.
Yeah, you're indoctrinated from the beginning, and it doesn't stop. Yeah. And so they can threaten you by putting you into these isolations. Corporal punishment was also not uncommon. You said that happened frequently. as a means of
every day.
every day.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about seeing your classmates, with teachers doing things to classmates, and you talked about lack of boundaries when it came to physical intimacy with parents and their children, and just your grandfather ultimately went to prison
Mm-hmm.
for his beliefs about teaching women and children about physical intimacy.
Yeah, I think, well, my grandfather went to prison for doing things he shouldn't have done.
Right.
And he rightly should have gone to prison, and he should have gotten a lot longer, and he should never have been allowed to get back into power, but he did. He got out of prison and he went back into power, and even when he was in prison, he was writing letters and communicating with the other leaders of the church to tell them how to run the place. And then when he got back out, like, there are not many people in Gloriavale who know the truth, because, oh God, it's going to sound like such a stereotype, but there is so much cover up. Like, I remember growing up believing that my grandfather had been persecuted for his faith, like that he was in prison because he was a Christian. Like,
oh, he was perpetrating crimes on children.
I still can't kind of believe that I grew up like thinking that. I remember visiting him in prison when I was really little, and I thought he was there because he was standing up for our faith, like he was doing a good thing. And this is a story they told the whole community. There are not very many people who knew, and a lot of it got lost with history as well. And when you don't have access to the internet, how the heck are you gonna know?
Well, his son is the person, your uncle is the person that got fed up because he took his kids and he couldn't get access to a kid, and he ended up filing charges against your grandfather for crimes he committed against his own son of a sexual nature. And then other people come forward, and you start learning about elders or these shepherds, and going into the hot tubs with these young girls, and the encouragement of parents and bringing their children into a hot tub with them. And it's unfathomable. And then they wrap that and they cloak that around a religion. It's, well, we're just practicing our religion.
Yeah, I think you've also got to remember, a lot of these things we might look at and go, well, that's so weird. But this was happening in Gloriavale at the same time as flower power, free love, intentional communities. So Gloriavale were also mirroring what was happening in society outside of Gloriavale.
Oh, for sure.
And the world in general. So a lot of these practices were came from my grandfather, again, studying and the hippie movement, and saying we need to be less prude and more open and free. And it was it came along with this sense of liberation.
And then he goes away and he comes back, and then it changes, or is it just more secretive?
It changes, definitely, because when there is public scrutiny, when there's actual prison charges, things change. And that's why it's so important for survivors to tell their stories, because it can't keep happening when they do. It's the one thing that can stop it all from happening is the truth.
And there was just a recent teacher that was convicted this past fall.
Well, it was the conviction was recent, but the charge wasn't so recent. But yeah, again, a person in power who's supposed to be protecting and looking after the kids, who was a survivor, spoke up, and he had charges placed against him.
It almost seems like these kinds of communities almost always end up in this path of with the power then comes these, Because these types of crimes are not about the physical component, it's about power and control. And it seems like when these sorts of structures, and it happens with all of them, with the Catholic Church, you know, I grew up in the Catholic Church. They protected the priests, you know. We see it with in the IFB, which is the Independent Fundamental Baptists right now. They're having a host of issues right now with their protecting the pastors. The Jehovah's Witnesses right now are dealing with a massive scandal where it's the same thing, where they're not telling families to like go to the police. And you guys are not to trust anyone on the outside.
Yeah.
And you have no one to tell you what the proper boundaries are. So when you walk out of a situation like this, you have no idea how to have boundaries, I'm guessing.
No, absolutely none.
Because you're not taught to make decisions. You're taught to be selfless. You don't know how to be an independent because you're with a group. How does that, you left when you were 18, right? How does that manifest in your life today? Like, how have you had to create boundaries and identity?
Yeah. By making lots of mistakes. Like, it's like growing up. It's like going through the childhood and adolescence, but as an adult. Like, you have to learn things about who you are and what you like, and like what your favorite colors are, or what music you like, or how you want to like dress, or how you want to do your hair, like, or what like kind of career you like. You have to learn all of those things, and usually we're supposed to learn those things as kids. Like, we're supposed to discover and try new and learn to dislike and like and figure out ourselves and be free to explore when we're children. For people who come from an environment like I have, we have never had any of that freedom of self-discovery. So we have to do it after the fact. And it's more hard work. We have to learn about like there's a really steep learning curve for us coming into the world, which can be very, very overwhelming. And can often lead like you can't often cope with it. For example, like, it can be very hard because, like, how do you know that, like, if someone offers you drugs, you're allowed to say no? Like, how do you know if you should or you shouldn't say no? And when you've never had any freedom, do you want to say no? So it can lead down these really self-destructive paths. I would guess people don't have support to figure this out, like, and know how to keep themselves safe.
Because you don't know moderation. You don't.
No.
Because everything has
you've never had to do it.
You've never
had to choose for yourself.
It's like everything is in black and white, good or bad, yes or no. And so we see this in the United States. There's this group called the FLDS, which are polygamists, and it happens with a lot of these cults. Though it happens with the Amish or people leaving the fundamentalist, Baptist groups, where you see the boys specifically getting kicked out for, the men are threatened or they don't want that boy in this because of the power, the structure, all of this. And then the boys leave and then they end up with nowhere to go, with no resources, and addicted to drugs and alcohol because they're young and it's, what am I going to do? Nobody cares for me. And it's natural for teens to experiment, and then they have no one guiding them. And they call them, with the FLDS, they're called the lost boys. So does that happen with people that leave? Do you see people just becoming lost and I don't know what to do? Or do you guys have support?
In later years, there's been support, but there wasn't always, which made it more difficult for people who left years and years ago. I mean, gosh, it's difficult anyway. But like having a bit of extra support helps. Like, there's now a Gloriavale Leavers Trust that people can donate to. And basically their objective is that when people leave, they help them into a home, furniture, food, clothing, like your essential things you need to live in the world, because you leave with nothing, like
Right.
nothing. You have no belongings. It's not like you can wear the clothes you've been wearing.
Yeah, that's
Like you have no money. You don't even know what a bank account is. You don't know. I remember I don't know how to use an EFTPOS card. I walked into JJ's with this like new EFTPOS card that my dad had helped me get, because he was a bit more world savvy because he'd traveled.
Yeah.
And he was a business manager for Gloriavale, so he had to be. But I was like, I walked up to the to pay for my clothes, and there's this like machine there with buttons on it, and I've got this little red card, and I'm like, what do I do to the person serving me? I was like, how do I use this? Something we might take for granted because we do it every single day now. But like when I say the learning curve is steep, it's really steep on a really basic level.
Yeah, you're
but
like
also like
but
on
you're
a psychological level. You're living in a completely different world, a completely different culture. Like you see things and you're like, this is messed up. Like my brain literally is struggling to process how this is happening because it's so different. Like it might be normal for, say, you, but for me, it's strange and difficult to think about. And so it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress on people. It puts a lot of stress on their body, on their mind, on their spirit, and they need extra support.
What kind of support do you have?
I have a therapist who is amazing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I also do like a lot of writing. I do a lot of art. Like I've found ways to keep myself safe and alive. Like I remember a time in my life where I didn't want to be here because it was so hard for me.
Yeah.
And like I've had to lean on people, like lean on my friends. And I will say, when you go through really dark times in your life, you figure out who's really like there for you.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember my girlfriends they would come to my house and be like, you're coming out tonight. And they would literally dress me. Like they would put clothes on me, do my makeup, do my hair, and take me out because I needed that.
Yeah.
Like, so leaning on my friends, keeping my body healthy, exercising, even when I hated it and didn't want to. Like, we know how to keep ourselves safe, well and safe, if we can learn to like trust our natural instincts.
Yeah.
But in Gloriavale, you're taught to distrust your natural instincts.
Right, your natural instincts are wrong.
Yeah.
So your mind must be playing games with you constantly
You're in a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, a confusion about what's right and wrong, if I'm okay or if I'm not okay. And there is a lot of self-discovery that you have to do, more so than a child who would have been, say, raised in like a liberated environment, or even just say, gosh, I don't like this word, but normal New Zealand society, privileged.
Mainstream.
It's a lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just go through more.
You have probably gone through, oh my gosh, but your parents left at the same time. So, and your siblings, most of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of them.
So how is your family coped, like as a whole? Have you stayed together, or have relationships fractured since leaving because of people being like, what the hell did you have us living in?
No, we left for our family.
Okay.
That was just my direct family. Like we left because for each other. We wanted to be together because a couple of my siblings had already run away from Gloriavale, and then my younger brother was planning to leave too. We were losing our family. So we left so that we could be together. And I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, because give me any family where relationships are easy.
No,
like
you've got then you've got 10 kids and 2 parents.
Yeah. Give me a family with 12 different personalities who's also grown up in an environment like this,
right?
Whose children have suffered major adversity.
Yes.
And like, that's never going to be an easy journey, but it is what it is. And for us, I think, like, for me, in my role in my family, I just try to be here, like, and do what I know is right. Like, and there's a part of me that, like, is so happy that my sisters get to have a completely different life to me.
Yeah.
And then there's the part of me that's like so upset that I never had the opportunity.
Yeah, because
that I missed out, because
you're
like
wrong.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of, like, me learning to love myself. I talk about that heaps. It's like my core message is this relationship with self, because as a survivor of abuse, most of the time, if something's happening to you, abuse, you're taught to believe it's because you've done something wrong and it's your fault and you're to blame.
Right.
There is absolutely no responsibility taken by the perpetrator.
Never.
Obviously.
And all of the rules are set in the favor of the people in the leadership so that they're never wrong.
Exactly. So when you've grown up constantly thinking that if I get hit, that there's something wrong with me, I need to do better, you develop this sense of, like, I'm never good enough. Because, to be honest, like, if I really do better, am I not going to get hit? Probably not. Like, and same for, like, all the other children that I saw. Like, I think for a lot of survivors of abuse, one thing that's not commented on enough is, like, witness trauma, where we have seen abuse happen.
Right.
That can often impact us more than what happened to us.
Yeah.
It's like, and me being naturally very, very protective of vulnerable people, like, seeing the children that I loved, my friends, my cousins, being mistreated, it really has an impact.
I can't imagine. You must have PTSD. You have to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, another part of me was going, I said this to my sister on the phone the other day, I was like, this isn't, like, my trauma isn't going to go away. Like, there is no world in which I'm going to wake up one day and be like, I'm happy and I'm happily healed. Like, it's all gone. Like, it leaves an imprint.
Yeah.
Any sort of trauma does. And part of me's been going, I have this and I'm okay. I have this and I can have a career. I have this and I'm strong. Like, and I can like use this as my strength. I can use my story to help others. Like, I really feel like that's what resilience is. Like, is being able to go through all this crap and then still, like, stand up and be like, well, I'm here and I'm still giving it a good shot. Yeah. Not even standing, like, I'm still fighting.
Yeah. I'm guessing, how old are you now? 29. 29. So you've been out 11 years.
Yeah. 11 years.
And today you love makeup and fashion and
yeah, I love it. It's an expression of myself and who I am. Like, everything for me is about, like, learning more about who I am and my identity. I'm super into fashion. Like, I love it. I love colors. I love art. I've always been really, really creative. So, like, I feel lucky.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting that I just feel lucky that I can be here appreciating things that are just,
it probably, like,
I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
Because in Gloriavale, you're not allowed. This is wrong. Don't do this. And now I live a life where I'm like, you're allowed to. I give you permission. Like, try this new thing.
There's, like, this dichotomy, this strange dichotomy of this trauma and then the empowerment of being free.
Yeah, exactly.
That has got, oh my gosh. Like,
I know.
hearing this is just overwhelming. I mean,
Yeah.
thinking about having to learn basic things at 18, 19 years old, and then feeling robbed of a childhood, and then having to realize that everything that you've learned is a lie, that women are worth way more than our uteruses. We have
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
voices, and our stories matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you've turned this into an incredibly powerful moment by writing your book, which I will put a link in to this, just the description of the video. But and you do speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Is this your career now, or like in speaking, or?
It's like, for me, it's like the never-ending journey. Like, I love to speak, I love to write, and I love to do art. And those are and I love my whānau. So those are like the four things in my life that I'm like, if I can do this, I'm happy. For me, like, even doing interviews like this, I every time I'm doing this, I'm talking about this, I am revisiting trauma. Like, it's so it's important for me that I look after myself,
Yeah.
and I'm not constantly living in
And
my trauma.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very careful about how often I take speaking engagements for this, because that's just part about me knowing, learning, having learned what I need to be okay, to be well, what I can cope with, how much I can carry, and what's too much. That's me, like, shedding the Gloriavale mindset of you have to keep working, and you have to work extremely hard, or you're worth nothing.
Like, so you have to self-care. You have to take time for yourself. And
yes, yeah. So I'm like, currently projects, I'm working on a book. I do a lot of art, which I'll be uploading online for people to buy. All of it is centered around this idea of relationship with self, inspiring bravery and courage in others, hoping that, like, that if someone comes into contact with me in their life, that they'll walk away a little with their chin a little higher, and just their spirit lifted a little more.
So who are you 11 years later? Who you were, this girl that when you were 16 years old was ready to declare yourself as, this perfect submissive woman, and the subservient child of God.
Yeah.
Who are you today?
Well, I changed my name. So, which I think is a good start if we're talking about identity. My name is, I took a Māori name because I was racially discriminated against for being Māori. So now my name's Lilia Tarawa. Te Aroha Maia means the brave, love, means confidence and courage. So that's a big part of who I am. Huge family girl, love nature walks, always running and hiking up the hills behind my place. I'm a writer, 100% a writer, public speaker, advocacy speaker, and creative, like through and through.
You're already like helping people with all of the stuff that you're doing. I think it's like truly amazing that you've come out on this on the other side and are doing positive things.
Yeah.
What would you say to people that, like, I think one of the challenges that we deal with is that when we see people in these situations, it's very easy for us to judge and be very critical of the beliefs they have, because a lot of these groups, they're homophobic, they're transphobic, a lot of them are a lot of them are white supremacists in a way, because they, value homogeny. They want everything to look the same, So, like, I always try to temper people, like, because they hate the fundies, they hate their beliefs, and I'm always like, but this is such indoctrination, right? So what do you say to people that, like, if you had a friend coming out, like, how would you support them? Like, how would you help them?
A friend coming out of Gloriavale?
Yeah, or just a cult in general.
I would say like just be like super patient, because you're gonna have a lot to learn. Like, and don't place too much expectation on yourself. That doesn't mean you can't be ambitious and you can't like reach for the stars if you have goals and dreams. But first and foremost, like get connected to like people that can help you. One of the best things I did after leaving Gloriavale was to go to church. I went to a church, a more liberal church outside Gloriavale, and I found friends and relationships that I've still have today. And I was able to feel a bit more at home, because you're basically leaving home,
Yeah.
and that this world doesn't feel like home. Yeah, be patient and kind, be kind.
And I'm guessing a lot of the things that you've learned were, you're taught to be afraid of everyone. Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, my internet, hold on.
You're back now, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm guessing you had to relearn a lot of things, because you didn't, like, even about people, because people out here are supposed to be wicked. And I'm guessing you've realized that we're not.
Some are, some aren't.
Well, yeah, as in any.
Yeah, like so there's no like blanket rule. I think what I've really done is gone and taken like the black and white out of my life and learned to live in the gray area.
I love that.
It's helped. It's flexible. It gives me, it's made life easier for me.
And how are your parents doing?
They're doing really good. They started their own business when they came out, and that went through, as business does, ups and downs, but they're in a really good place. They do plumbing and drainage work, because my dad's a qualified plumber.
Okay.
And my brother's a qualified drain layer. And my other brother's a plumber, and my other brother's a builder. So they must like the trade. Mum's an accountant. So she does the bookwork. I keep telling her not to work too hard. She's like,
old habits die hard, I'm guessing.
Pardon?
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, definitely, especially when they've been like 40 years of a habit. Like, so she, like, I think she works too much, and it's interesting with my relationship with my mum. It's like I often feel like I'm teaching her things like boundaries that I've had to learn, and because no one ever taught her those things too.
Right.
Like this is generational suppression. Like a lot of the time when survivors come out, they're actually the daughters and sons of parents who experience very similar things as they did.
Yeah, and the cycle keeps repeating itself.
The cycle goes on. I'm really like, I'm a big advocate for like stopping generational cycles, which is about like healing that inner trauma. And it's hard work.
Yeah, it is.
But you, like, the world needs it. You need it. You deserve it.
Everybody has boundary issues, I think. I mean, and all families have cycles, and anyone breaking a cycle, it's challenging. But it's amazing in the same breath that they're, that you guys left, that you are finding a way, even though it's not pretty and perfect. And
oh my God. Is that even real?
No.
Pretty perfect.
What do you want for your future? Like, now that you have dreams?
Well, like, here's a really interesting thing. I don't know whether I want children or not. Like, there's a really nurturing part of me that's like, I want children. And then there's like the rebel part of me that's like, now that I can choose, maybe I don't, know?
Yes.
And there's a part of me that loves like being a career woman, loves setting up a business, making it thrive. And part of me is like, I don't want kids like messing with that. I don't want to be like carrying a baby around. And then there's the other part of me that's like, oh, like I really love to pass my knowledge on and like raise another human, So like, I'm still figuring it out. Like, there are a lot of those things that I'm just like, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Like,
You never know until you get there, to be honest.
You never know, and something might happen tomorrow that changes everything.
Oh yeah, I wasn't gonna get married either.
Really?
Well,
It's another one, marriage.
Yeah, I grew up. I grew up Catholic, and Catholic has
Yeah.
that same very patriarchal. I mean, we live in the real world, but it has that very patriarchal component. And you know, my mom was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. Worked like part-time growing up, and then worked full-time. And so I never wanted to be subservient. I didn't want to be, you know, so I wasn't going to have kids either. And then I had one, and now I'm good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So marriage is another one, because of thing, like, I grew up with the notion of marriage being like, wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands. And now that I just cannot digest that as like, as a modern woman today. I'm like, that if the notion of marriage has that meaning for me, then of course I'm not going to want it. But then there's another part of me that likes the idea of having a big party, putting on a pretty dress, inviting all of my friends and family, and having like, you know, a good time. And then like, I feel like I'm really lucky to like have someone in my life who has said to me, whatever you want to do is cool. Like, get married, cool. Don't get married, cool. Like, and that's what I need, because like a lot of these things I'm still deciding.
Patient, right? Be patient.
Real patient.
How long have you been?
And no right and wrong.
No. And to be frank, in today's world, not as many people are getting married. People are getting married later. I was 31. My husband was 39. You know, I think whatever works. Yeah.
And I think like, I'm super practical too. And to an extent, I'm like, well, what is the purpose of marriage? Like, if like we're together for this long, we're in a de facto anyway, which is the same thing. So and like, I know you're committed to me, I'm committed to you. It's the same thing. Standing in front and making a declaration to other people, it's not going to make it any more true than it already is.
Right.
Like, to me, it like, if the relationship has legs, it will stand on its own. You don't need a marriage to make it more, but you can have a wedding. See, I don't know if so much want a marriage as I want a wedding. The wedding would be fun.
Not the party.
Yeah, because like, there's a part of me that just like wants to like design bouquets. Yeah, and like give little gifts to people and dress up really fancy.
You want to be the princess. You never got to be the little princess.
Yeah.
I can
That's
see that.
so true. Yeah.
Every little girl wants to be
my princess. Yeah, and Gloriavale, marriage was like, gosh, like I looked forward to my wedding day so much. It was going to be like the biggest day of my life. And now, like, my values they've changed.
Right. Well, now you get to pick your partner, right? And you get to like.
Amazing. I know. Amazing. They actually get to choose.
Yeah. This is like, you are an amazing human. Like, I honestly just want to stay connected to you because I want to learn more from you and I want to like be your friend. I mean, that's how, you know what I mean? Like that's how it feels. Like, it's like, you're an amazing human being.
Oh, thanks, Katie. That means a lot. I'm blushing.
Thank you so much for like sharing, and like I feel like my subscribers are going to learn so much because people are they're so intrigued with these sort of lives, and I think we forget about what happens after, you know, like you know, and how we can help support and be there for people. And I'm so grateful that you've had support, that you're helping other people, and that you're also taking care of yourself so that you're not putting your whole life into helping others.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the interview. I really appreciate anyone who's willing to help like survivors get their stories out there.
Yes.
And whistleblowers, you know, truth tellers who
That's
just
me.
want the best for other people. Yeah. So thank you. Really, really appreciate all your hard work,
Of
but
course.
not too hard work.
Yeah, I know. I'm a truth teller and I'm a truth seeker and I'm a storyteller
Yeah.
and there's so many cults out there I just want to blow the whistle on and just help the survivors. But it's not just, I want to help all survivors of everything. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
a domestic assault or a domestic violence survivor, a survivor of rape. I want to help all of these people. And so I just want to help tell stories.
Yeah. That's cool.
Well,
You're doing amazing.
I will share the link to your book. Is there anything else that you're working on that I can share or that you want to promote?
Not really, because I'm currently working on a story, but I'm not going to say what it's about because I give it away.
Right. Yeah.
It's a fiction, like just between me and you, like it's a fiction novel that I'm working on. So who knows how long that'll take to write. Like sometimes these things take quite a few years. But that's what I'm working on at the moment. It's pretty much just my book and my TED Talk that I'm really pushing, because there's still so many people that haven't heard my story that being able to hear my story is going to impact them. And I've just received so many messages from people all over the world. Oh my God, the stories you hear, the type of people, what they've grown up in, and it's amazing just to hear that I've made a difference. And the kids, they're these young kids who follow me on Instagram, and they're only 10 and 13, and they're that's what I really love is the kids and being able to inspire them. So
You're somebody's hero. I mean, think about that.
I know, it's so cute. It's because I remember reading books and I was little, and I was I read this one called The Little Red Hen, and she was my hero because she was so independent. But it's so weird when I'm someone read my story, it's actual real book. Whoa.
I'm gonna finish this book fast. I am devouring it. So I'll link the TED Talk, which is also incredibly powerful. Make sure you grab your tissues, guys, because you will cry with TED Talk. I had to watch it. I just split it up because I got too emotional.
Oh, real?
Yeah. I felt,
oh my God.
I was I have to turn this off. I had to turn it off. And then I finished it and I was okay, I'm glad I finished it because it's very moving, it's very powerful, and it really gets to the heart of your emotions about this world and who you are today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, good.